Joseph Belliveau is the Executive Director of Doctors Without Borders Canada. Joseph, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
All of the news we're hearing about the situation at El Shifa Hospital is pretty grim right now. What's the latest you're hearing from your workers who are at that particular facility?
Yeah, it's been a brutal, violent weekend. We received a text message from one of my nurse colleagues that was on Friday, basically saying, "We are being killed here. Please help us." He went on to describe he was sheltering in the basement of Al Shifa with his family and several other families, and went on to describe how the shelling was in and so close to the facility and even hitting the facility from time to time that his children were just screaming in fear. And my several other colleagues, it's been really patchy, really difficult to piece together what exactly has occurred over the weekend. But we have gotten bits of text messaging and information. Colleagues having to run up to the fourth floor, hoping to get a little bit of contact with the outside world, and then updating us. And indeed, the hospital and the surroundings have been bombarded relentlessly throughout the weekend. The maternity ward was hit directly. The outpatient ward was hit directly. Apparently, the generator, it's lost all electricity now. Apparently, the generator was also hit as well. So no more electrification. This has meant one doctor said that we lost 2 neonates, so premature newborn babies who are in incubators. The incubators lose electrification, and 2 of those babies died. There are about 3 dozen others neonates in that situation whose lives are at risk as well. So it really has become very desperate over the weekend.
This was a nightmare scenario. We've been speaking with doctors in the facility about losing power, the ventilators, the incubators. None of those can work, obviously, without fuel. But we're also seeing something else, Joseph, from MSF International on their social media. It appears to be a message they got from one of the staff in the hospital talking about there being a sniper outside the hospital that has shot people, including maybe patients. What do you know about that? What can you tell us about that?
Heard similar from my colleagues as well. It's not exactly clear who the sniper is, who they're affiliated to, what their aims are. He did speak of several people in the hospital who were struck by sniper fire and the injuries and wounds that they suffered because of it. He also went on to describe how obviously how incredibly unsafe it is in the facility and outside as well. And we've been hearing these calls for weeks now, and particularly over the last few days. Get out of the hospital, evacuate. The hospital is going to be under attack. It indeed has been under the attack, but that order, get out, is impossible. First off, because there are so many people that we simply cannot move. Some of these neonates or people in intensive care, extremely wounded people who cannot walk. And there's no way to physically transport them. And secondly, one of my doctors was describing over the weekend how when some people did try to leave the facility, they were bombed. They were struck as well.
The neonates, you talk about the babies. We've seen pictures shown to us by our reporter Ellen Morrow of doctors putting tinfoil on the sides of the incubators to try to keep the babies warm, saying they can't keep them warm. We've seen reports that this hospital, which is the largest in Gaza, is essentially not functioning right now. I mean, is it just low-tech, zero-power treatment that people are providing there now? I mean, what is the functionality level of this hospital?
Well, and just to recall that before the weekend, this was already an incredibly desperate situation. Hundreds of people, my colleagues are estimating 600 inpatients at the moment in this facility, plus so many others who've been trying to seek some measure of safety on hospital grounds in the belief that hospital grounds and medical spaces must be protected, as they must be under the rules of war, under international humanitarian law. And in these circumstances of so many people and so many medical needs, one doctor was describing how they've reverted to using vinegar to treat infections, how they're performing surgeries on the floor without painkillers, without gauze to stem the flow of bleeding. So these just absolute desperate circumstances already before this weekend, and now it's just almost hard to imagine. There's no justification on the grounds of humanity, and certainly no justifications on the grounds of international humanitarian law for the continued bombardment and violence against non-combatants in these hospital facilities.
The justification we have seen from the Israel Defense Forces is that Al-Shifa is used as a command and control center by Hamas, that they're in tunnels underneath, they're in the compound somewhere, or maybe in the basement. They showed video today of what they found in a now evacuated children's hospital in Gaza that they say is pretty conclusive proof that Hamas was operating out of the basement there. What are your people in Al-Shifa telling you about this? Do they know, are they telling you that Hamas is operating in that hospital?
Certainly not out of the basement and not out of the facility itself. We have no way of verifying how close Hamas is, whether they're underground or not underground, where they're hiding. We're not qualified and don't have the information to verify that one way or another. What we can absolutely verify is the number of civilians, and the majority of them are women and children. These are people and babies. We just talked about neonates. These are people who very obviously cannot even participate in hostilities, let alone be part of a warring force against the Israeli army. So what we can verify is the continued and egregious violations. So the continued pattern of bombing medical facilities, the siege warfare, since the beginning now. My colleagues were just talking over the weekend again how they've completely now run out of food and out of water. So you ask about the kind of conditions. Yes, my colleagues are also facing that and continuing to face that intense dilemma. Should I leave or should I stay? And they keep coming back and saying, we cannot abandon our patients. If I leave, one surgeon was saying, he said, if I leave, who will treat them? And so they're choosing to stand by these people in the midst of such egregious violations. And it's why MSF, Doctors Without Borders, very unusually coming out to call for a ceasefire instead of saying, please, in the midst of war, respect humanity, respect the spaces for humanitarian action. That is just so consistently not happened that we're actually now calling for a ceasefire.
So Joseph, what happens in the next 24 hours? If people can't leave because of the bombardments around the hospital and near the hospital, there's a sniper of unknown, agency outside apparently, but the power is gone or largely gone, and you don't have the basic medical supplies you need to function. I mean, what happens in the next 24 hours at Al-Shifa?
We lost a colleague earlier in the week. His home was hit. He and many members of his family were killed earlier in the week. We don't have consistent contact with all of our doctors and nurses and medical colleagues who are there. I fear very much. I can hear the fear in their voices. I can hear it in their messages when they tell us that people are being killed around them, that they might be killed next. When they write on the whiteboard where we used to write surgical cases, instead of writing the number of surgical cases needed for that week, they're writing, we did what we could. Please remember us. So what happens in the next few days if it continues to go like this? Many more people will die. I don't know how it could get worse. I just know that people's lives are at imminent danger.
Joseph Belliveau, Executive Director of Doctors Without Borders Canada. Thanks so much for your time again today.
Thank you, David.